Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Case, which is a podcast where global leaders from Harvard Business School's OPM community join in a personal capacity and they share the real decisions, failures, life principles, and mental models which go behind building enduring companies. My guest today is Brad Cowdrey. He is the founder and CEO of eveoy. How are you, Brad?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Brad, do you just want to take a moment to introduce yourself and your company?
You bet. I'm Brad Cowdrey. I'm co-founder and CEO of eveoy. eveoy is a way for brands to fill their stores with people in store, target fit people on demand, auto refund for no-shows. So this has been an amazing venture. My background is I'm OPM 49. This is my 12th startup, some that I operate, some that I just invest in, all in tech, all in data. My background is hardware, software, operating systems, what we used to call machine learning. Now we're calling it AI. I don't have as much gray hair, but I have enough to remember the old days of original machine learning. And anyway, happy to be here and share anything I can. Hopefully it's helpful to you.
Thank you, Brad. Now, before we get into your background, you mentioned this is your 12th startup, but you included your association with the companies that you invest in. That's quite unique. It sounds like you are quite a lot more hands-on, and hence you refer to this being a 12th startup as opposed to you just being an investor in some of these companies.
Yeah, so I'm an angel investor. Sometimes I sit on the board, sometimes I operate the business. In any business that I run, I'm the general manager or the overall CEO. I also love to run tech, so I become the CTO because I'm deeply technical. But I also love sales and sales expansion, so I end up running that part of the business. And then I leave the other pieces to amazing people. And I think to answer your other question on 12, anybody who's done a startup, if you've done one or you've done many, you know it's all about just pain and suffering. So apparently I'm a masochist and I just love to suffer once in a while or all the time.
So you put your money, you put in your time as well, bring all your expertise, and you try to steer the ship to the best of your ability. That's so unique.
Yes. I don't know that I recommend it for everyone, but apparently I like that kind of control and investment. I think the big thing is like right now is a good example. I love to invest in people and grow them. They don't always like to be invested in and to be grown. But the few that do, people who work with these businesses that we start, really try and expand and change their thinking patterns and expand their minds to some degree. And so right now, as an example, with my engineering teams, I'm trying to help them move from coding to being thinkers and masters of puppets, like the old Metallica song, to get them into the idea that they need to use the technology to its fullest and not get in the way of the technology now that this Gen AI revolution is happening. So I get a lot of pleasure out of really pushing people and getting a lot out of them. I don't know that they would say the same, but a few will agree that that's a good endeavor and a positive change for the world.
Could you emphasize a little more on what the kind of conversations are that you have with your engineering team in the age of Gen AI? Is it you telling them, hey, stop coding and start thinking about how you maybe give instructions to Claude or some of the other Gen AI platforms? Could you just walk us through what some of these conversations look
Sure.
like?
Well, let me give you a little background. Years ago, when I was a teenager, I got to work with a company called Intelligent Electronics. This was back when in the late 90s, when Intelligent Electronics and Ingram Micro and some of these big corporations did all of the distribution for hardware. And one of their partners was Cray Supercomputer. So before there was Jeff Bezos and Larry Ellison at Oracle, there was Seymour Cray. So I had the pleasure of working with him as a kid. And they let me do whatever I want. But at Cray, what I learned very early on is they didn't write code. They wrote the code that wrote the code. Even back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it wasn't nearly as easy as Gen AI. You had to interface with systems that were more like assembler, more like what a radiologist would have to interact with and have that kind of level of training. But we did write code that wrote code. No one was allowed to just write the code themselves. So those patterns I've seen my whole life. I know how that's supposed to be done. And so now with Gen AI, when it hit, ChatGPT went big. I was connected to the few of the guys at OpenAI. I'm like, oh, I've got to retrain now everyone in software. All the devs need to learn this new way of writing code that writes code. And in our case, it turns out to be prompting and now building swarms and MCP servers, a bunch of other lingo that probably will drive you crazy if you're not technical. But there are patterns and there are proven ways that you can write code that writes code. And a lot of those patterns have already been discovered. And so I'm trying to bring that in, and kind of put that into the mindset of devs. But as you might imagine, they're not exactly happy to have to learn new tricks. Old dogs don't like learning new tricks. Even if you're 30, that's an old dog in the software world. Even the 30-year-olds are kind of resisting, these principles. So my goal now is to surround myself with amazing people who don't have so much ego they can't learn something. And now I can invest all of these patterns and these concepts into them for the new Gen AI world. And we're doing that underneath the covers of evoy, and any venture that I'm involved in that I advise, invest in, etc.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Can you walk us through your early life? Were you an entrepreneur straight out of college, or did you work somewhere and then the entrepreneurial bug bit you?
Yeah, I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm now 51. So just to give you some context, it turns out Colorado Springs is one of the largest military installations in North America by landmass, by population, by officers and enlisted men. So you have a lot of military application, and that draws a lot of technology and technology investment into that area. People don't know that, but I give that context because when I was a teenager, somehow, some way, they let me come in at 15 to start working on computers, and I did everything. I would configure operating systems, like the old IBM Unix systems. I would help rack and stack supercomputers. I'd work on your weighing dot matrix printer. Anybody has any idea what any of this is? But I did it all. I did component level repair on an Apple II or an 8088, wrote BIOS, wrote drivers, would configure supercomputers and burn them in and deliver those to the military, rack and stack those whole things. So that was kind of what got me into it. A lot of people think this was kind of like mystical and interesting, but back in the late 90s and early 2000s, if you knew anything about tech, they just let you run because no one knew anything. So I got, I would clean computers and blow them out. I would replace CRTs on monitors. I would do, microchip, insertions and things like that. I'd reprogram a read-only memory, a ROM, on a machine, but we didn't really worry about that. We'd write assembler and we'd compile it and put it on machines. This was just normal. We didn't know any different. And also back then, the whole technology community was a lot smaller. So when I was a kid working through a franchise of Intelligent Electronics, a guy by the name of Tim Cook ran sales at Intelligent Electronics. And I didn't know Tim. Tim didn't know me as far as he knew I was a janitor. Tim went to the Compaq company and did great things there. And then he went to the Apple company and now he runs that company. And so, but again, he ran the reseller network at Intelligent Electronics back then. So that's kind of how it was. And so what I was given kind of the blessing and the amazing principle was just go for it, just go do it, and just go learn it. There are no barriers. There are no fears. If you just look fear in the eye, it's kind of a ghost. It doesn't really exist. Just go do stuff. Just go build stuff, make things happen. If you don't know how to do it, call someone up. Maybe younger generations don't know that you can make phone calls on a phone, but you can actually talk to people and they'll help you and you'll learn something through the year. So that principle's always kind of stayed with me. If I didn't know how to do something or we didn't know how to build something or we didn't have expertise on any part of the stack from, the hardware, the wafer, all the way up to now Gen AI, if you don't know how something works, call someone up and they'll help you, and you can learn it. Anything one man can do, another person can do. So that's been kind of my principle since the beginning of time. And so nothing looks that scary to me. Getting everyone to do what you want them to do, that's kind of scary, right? I'm sure as any entrepreneur on this listening to this podcast would like to maybe from time to time strangle their employees. But it's the goal is to get everyone moving in the right direction. Nothing really in terms of knowledge can't be overcome. And so that's kind of what got me my early start in tech.
And then your background spans not just tech, but also data analytics.
Yes.
So
So
how did that
anything to do with
foundation?
data I'm interested in.
Yeah. How did that foundation influence your approach towards building and scaling businesses?
Back when we had supercomputers and microcomputers, we didn't have a lot of storage. So we actually didn't store everything to offline or near online storage like a magnetic disk or SSD. We didn't have a lot of room to store things. So we would actually put everything onto tape and stream it. Well, why am I sharing that with you? We would actually process data in streams, not from files on a hard drive. And so now, if you fast forward to today, the way that we process all data, especially for mobile or for any sort of large tech startup, it's a combination of storing the data and streaming the data for near real time information. So that led to analytics, what we used to call massive parallel processing. Then we called it machine learning and database processing. Today, we call it AI and Gen AI working on top of databases and database technology. And somewhere in between there, we called it business intelligence. But really, the idea is to grab massive amounts of data and make sense of it, organize it in a way and make sense of it. And so, to me, anything to do with data has been amazing. And a principle there that I learned very early on is data is the exhaust of human behavior. All data is the exhaust of human behavior. Even if it's a bot produces data. Well, someone built the bot, right? The bot just didn't build itself magically. Or if a bot was built by a bot that has data, still, there was a human in there somewhere in the loop. So understanding that data is the exhaust of human behavior, which business processes are human behavior, right? At the end of the day, I've always been fascinated by this. And now that we can store everything and we don't have to stream it off a tape, I've been all in that space, visualizing, gathering lots of information, making sense of it. And most people are not really data driven, kind of make intuitive decisions and then they use data to back it up. But I love the idea of being somewhat scientific using the data for decision making purposes and being able to store everything. So in a weird way, I'm kind of a psycho over data, but I'm here for it. I love it.
Brad, you've spoken to me in this conversation over the last 10 minutes about using a culture where you maybe 25 years ago were writing code, but you were actually building systems which could write code. And this is something we see happening today, 25 years later. You spoke about hardware on which you all stored data and information, but how you all could run out of that. And since then, we've seen AWS, Dropbox, Google Drive, etc., come with solutions which can help with data storage. You spoke about business intelligence, data analytics, etc. So it seems like you've been through the entire journey. You've probably been the person who's felt the pain of a lot of what was missing in tech, and then you've seen solutions evolve. How has that made you feel as someone who's been in the industry? Has it made you feel like, hey man, I was feeling this pain, should I have thought of this? Or has that made you feel like, I am glad someone's built this because this will actually enable me to scale faster in what I was already focused on?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. There's something amazing about always learning. And as the frequency and the speed of change is increasing now with Gen AI and who knows what's next when we apply it to robotics in the real world. It's to me, it's super exciting because I get to learn forever. So I love to learn. Actually, this is why I loved OPM. I was like a kid in a candy store learning from amazing people and sometimes the professors, but mostly the other OPMers, right? I just love to learn and absorb all the new information. So I love the fact that nothing sits still and everything constantly changes. Maybe I have ADD or something. I have some sort of problem. I'm broken in some weird way, but I love it. I love the change. I love the pace of change. And I love that we can't all do it all. And we got to be in this together. So, my hand in this to everyone is I don't care where you are, if you were an OPM 5 or I don't even know what the latest OPM is, 85 or something, who knows. But whichever OPM you're in, if you need help, I'm here for it. I'm here to help share knowledge. I love that part of the tech journey. And so, yeah, there's always problems to solve, but I don't look at that as a problem. So I kind of look at this as something magical. That great. There's more problems to go solve, and we can jump in and figure it out.
And just on that point, could you walk us through how you distill problem into eventually coming up with a solution and getting the conviction that, hey, this is probably a problem I want to tackle and attempt investing years and years and maybe a lot of capital and all of my network into.
Yeah, I want anything that could be like a game changer, global domination kind of project now. I'm at that phase of my life. I want the big ones. I want the ones that can really change the world. I could go help someone with maybe a smaller market, and that's fine. Everyone's got to have their place in life, but I want something big to go tackle. So evoy is a good example. So what is evoy? Our community of shoppers shops your brand on demand. Well, what does that mean? Basically, any brand can load their stores with tens of thousands of people with one click and one credit card swipe. So that sounds cool, right? It is really amazing. But to build that is an absolute mammoth. That's a huge problem to solve because we've got to be able to GPS verify that people showed up, photo verify they showed up, bring all that data back to the client. So the client gets their stores full, gets their brand to just take off with growth, but they also get pictures. They call it UGC. Basically, it's pictures and video of people with the brand. This is what the CPG and the retailers call it. But you've got to now work in physical space as well as digital space. So think of the entire technology platform. So we actually had to build an entire fleet management system on top of an app. So what's a fleet management system? It would be very similar to like Uber or Lyft or DoorDash. That's a fleet management system. So it's the system that coordinates all the people going on all the different places. And then, of course, the app itself that people use. So we built that, and now we're in our launch phase now to really grow this and scale it. And when you jump into a project like this, it's not just the call it the platform and the app and the logistics that you're going to have to build. It's a new category. So there's nothing to go copy. It's not like we're building a dating app or we're building an e-commerce app. There's literally no one to go copy. So you literally have to forge everything, build it and destroy it over and over and over again until you find what it is that you wanted to build, and make sure it's obviously product market fit. So that enormous challenge is just an example of what I'm in the middle of, but it's obviously top of mind. Love all of those challenges, and in a way, Gen AI really helped us on that project. So it's solving problems that we were going to have to solve with a massive call center. Let me give you an example. Imagine if we have 10,000 people coming to Dunkin' Donuts stores throughout California, Nevada, and Arizona, which we may have done. Then when those people arrive, you've got to capture where they're going, like jet trails in the air. We have jet trails on the ground of people going to all the stores. You've got to capture all those pictures. You've got to rate the pictures. You've got to gamify it so it's fun and enjoyable, and it's not secret shopper or some boring, terrible thing to do to people. It's got to be really, really fun and interesting. And so building that and tuning that and then bringing the people, and then how are you going to do user acquisition, right? How are you going to do brand acquisition? How are you going to do all those things? It's an enormous, enormous challenge. So it's just a great, like the massive 3D jigsaw puzzle that we had to solve. And there was no picture on the box so that you knew how to build the puzzle, right? So this is the thing that I love and enjoy about maybe just going for a huge category, new category or world changing kind of venture.
I have a lot of questions on evoy. If I could just zoom into that particular business. Firstly, what kind of businesses would be ideal to be a customer for evoy? Is it someone who's selling retail products, let's say grocery, etc., or could it be merchandise sales, let's say jewelry brands, shoes, etc.? That's one. Number two, and very importantly, because I just did unit one, who is your customer? Is it the fleet that you are managing, or is it the business that is coming to you?
This is a great
And how
one.
do you think around that?
Maybe we could write a case on this one, right? So that'd be fun. Yeah, great question. So I'll keep it really, really simple, then I'll expand. Any B2C brand that's selling to consumers would be a great fit as a brand on our platform. Okay, so we bring a community of consumers, and we'll bring just the perfect target market out of that group to your brand through what we call a brand experience or a campaign experience. Okay, well, what's an experience? It's very simple. People get to go to Dunkin' Donuts and have a drink and get paid $10 just to enjoy their time with friends. In my case, I love outdoor stuff. I'm from Colorado. So if I got to go to REI or Bass Pro and check out the latest camping gear, maybe check out a mountain bike, and share war stories with people who are in that community, and I get paid $20 just to go and have fun and take a few pictures, I'm all in, right? Because that's my tribe. Those are my people. So these experiences are like that. The people, the shoppers, the consumers that go into that experience, they'll never forget your brand. So it's really extra good if you have a new store and you need to get traction on that new store or a new restaurant. It's really good if you have a new product, whether you're a big brand or a small brand, doesn't matter. You want to bring, 6,000 people to try that product and experience that product in a physical store or online. We can do that. So right now, that's working really well for most market sectors inside of retail, consumer products, and some hospitality like cafes. It's also working for some hotels, resorts, which is really interesting. And so what does it do at the end of the day? We can bring as many new customers to your brand instantly, literally within 2 to 4 weeks, $25 a person, and auto refund for no shows. So even if you pay for, 500 people at $25 a person and only 450 people show up, you only pay for the 450, and the system literally auto refunds you for the 50 that didn't come or perform and do all the activities. So it's great for the consumer and it's great for the brand. So hopefully that answers your question. And what was the second part of your question? Maybe I missed it.
Who is your customer? Is it the fleet, or is it the business that is retaining you?
So we have two, call it, categories of customers. We have what we call the advocates. They're our users. That's our consumer community. And then we have the brands, the B2C, anyone who's selling something B2C. So retail, CPG, and hospitality are what we've focused on so far. I've had a lot of great traction. So what does that mean? What the heck does that mean? Well, that can be used by marketers at the brands. So maybe they like the foot traffic, but marketers may not care as much about the foot traffic as maybe the general manager and the regional manager does. But they want all the UGC, the pictures and video of people with the brand. So when you bring one visitor for $25, roughly, that person is in your target fit community. Now they're experiencing your brand. They're trying your latte, they're playing with your product in store, they're trying on the dress, whatever it is, whatever you're selling. But they're actually taking pictures, and you get all those pictures, and they're high quality and they're rated. So our customer in that case is marketing, but it's also maybe the general manager, the regional manager, or the overall CEO. He's getting all the foot traffic, or she's getting all the foot traffic in the store. So if you want tons of growth, tons of customers, tons of marketing material, and it's cheap, $25 a person, we guarantee the result. That's awesome. But that's what the retail CPG people tell us on the brand side. That's the customer there. Anybody who's getting value out of that very straightforward, easy button for growth. Sales, by the way, sales loves it too. Finance loves it because we can guarantee a sale. If your ticket price is, $100 or less, we can guarantee a purchase
So the
in all
people
of that.
showing up, the consumer showing up, they have to buy out of pocket. They're not getting a product to test out.
Great question. Great question. So for the consumers, they're also our customers. But what do they get? They get entertainment, they get to shop and earn money. And it's not coupons, it's not a gift card. No, it's cash on their debit card through Stripe. So if I go and do the experience, maybe at REI, and I spend 20 minutes there taking pictures, meeting people, having fun, and I do the 5 activities, when it's done, that money hits my debit card. I make $15, let's say, or $20, and I'm happy. Now I got $20 burning a hole in my pocket, and I'm at REI. I'll probably spend 50, right? Knowing me. So that's kind of that's the consumer side. But the key is with who's the customer? It's got to be fun. So we've made this super super fun for the consumer side. It's not work. It's not Secret Shopper. It's not DoorDash. It's not Lyft. No, you literally get to go have fun and get paid in stores. It's an experience. It's fun. So, and you can go with friends, you can go alone, doesn't matter. So that's kind of the two sides of it. Now, what does the brand do? The cost of acquisition for most retail, CPG, and hospitality of a new customer is far north of $50. It's 50 to hundreds of dollars to get a brand new customer in your store who buys. So with evoy, you can bring those people to your store, and let's say it's a cafe, they can buy a latte out of their own money, to answer your question. But if I'm going to, Phil's Coffee in San Francisco, and I'm going to get $15 to go check out of Phil's and have fun, take a few pictures, And will I be willing to buy a latte for $7? The answer is yes. And then we can actually just change how much the people get paid easily with the brand to cover the price of the product. So you can actually use your marketing dollars to get people in the door and guarantee the result.
Probably all of us have seen the speech by Steve Jobs where he says everything he did in life eventually ended up connecting the dots to where he landed up in the later years of his life. And so today, when you think back on your journey in tech, in data analytics, how do you think your background has fed into coming together and helping you with matching, insights, fleet management, etc. at evoy?
I think really understanding how technology actually works down to the electrons is a huge advantage. A lot of devs don't even really understand how the hardware works. They don't understand how a wafer is built. They don't really understand what a GPU is or what a graph database is. Like a lot of the underpinning technology, most people don't know how that stuff works, but it's not because you can't learn it. We have a thing called the internet and AI. You can learn anything, right? So it's just because they don't want to take the time to learn all of that. I love learning how everything works. So I was that kid that took things apart and couldn't put it back together because I wanted to know how it worked. So I'm love the layers and layers and layers and how all that works, soup to nuts. And candidly, some things like we don't know how it works. Like we don't actually know how GenAI works. When the data is stored, we call it model weights for an AI model. It's actually just a big CSV file. That's all it is. Like if you were to look at OpenAI's core, latest version 5 model, it would look like a massive flat file. And so how that becomes language, we don't actually fully understand because we've mimicked neural networks in the brain. So I also like the mystery of it. Actually, we don't even really know how electricity works. We know that we can make electrons and protons do things, but we actually don't know how electricity flows through a wire at a physical level. So the mystery of what we don't know and what we do know, I'm very comfortable with that tension. So that's kind of one part of the answer. And the other part is I just love the group of people coming together and trying new things and seeing what works. Because we all know not all roses are without thorns, right? Some have thorns, some don't. So that's just the way it is.
As a CEO, what are some of the principles or habits that guide you on a day-to-day basis?
In building a startup, there's actually 2 and 3 really important phases that have to be managed completely differently. I liken it to a hotel. Phase 1 is you've got to build the motel. You've got to build the hotel. And what you do to build and construct a hotel is very different than what you do to operate one. And so I have a lot of background and excellence in trying to build things quickly but also constructive destruction. Build and destroy, build and destroy. So never get too comfortable with the baby. Shoot the ugly baby. It's probably a horrible thing to say. You can't put that in an HBS case, right? But shoot the ugly baby. It could be a feature, could be an entire module, could be your whole app. But constantly destroy it and rebuild it and do it as fast as humanly possible. Very excited about Gen AI for this, but even before we had Gen AI, this was the way to do it. And then what you end up with is a really great hotel. And then once you've got the thing built, it doesn't need to be perfect. You need to move into operational mode. The entire way you construct the startup, the people, the org chart, your leadership style, your approach, the way you speak has to now change as an operator. And sometimes there's a phase in between operating the hotel and building the hotel, which is testing the hotel as a prototype or a V1. And sometimes you just can't operate the hotel. You got to go back into construction mode, knock it down, blow it up, and rebuild it. And so understanding those phases early on in my 20s and 30s, I don't think that I fully appreciated how important that was. But, time has a way and money and the pressure has a way of teaching you some things, and pain and suffering have a way of teaching you some things that's a principle that anyone who's going to go build a tech startup or has built one will know what I'm saying is true. Be very comfortable with destroying the very thing that you just built because it's not the product that matters, it's the learning so that you know how to build the product to get your product market fit. This is a critical thing and it's very difficult because even at business B school, right, we're taught not to operate off sunk cost, right? You're not supposed to make decisions off sunk cost. So when you build software, and you look at it and you try and preserve it, that's a sunk cost. So if it works, if it's product market fit, leave it alone. But if it's not quite there, you need to destroy a part of it or all of it and rebuild it quickly. and be very comfortable with that. But once you move into operational mode and the product market fit, not perfect, but it's close, and you need to become an operator, the last thing you want to do is start destroying all the pieces of the building, just, adding on a ballroom like to the White House. It's the last thing you want to do at that point because you've already found your product market fit and you want to refine, but you don't want to, destroy and break a part of your hotel. And as we've all known, because everybody here is a traveler, when you go into a beautiful hotel for the first year, anytime in the first year, the first few months of that hotel being operated, it's going to suck, right? The front desk is going to suck. The housekeeping's going to suck, right? The food's going to suck. It's just, you're going to feel disjointed just walking into the place and taking your bed. So it takes time to also build your processes and operate the thing. And so I'm always mindful when I wake up in the morning, what phase am I really in? How do I need to show up as a leader? And how do I need to guide my team for this phase that we're in? Are we in a construction phase? Are we in a prototyping phase? Are we in an operational phase for that part or all of the product, the venture? And always keep that top of mind because it's easy, even as an experienced startup operator and founder, to get confused with what tools to bring out of your bag in that situation.
You referenced pain and suffering in your response at some point. I'd like to dig into that. Like any leader, entrepreneur, or business owner, you must have gone through moments of lows as well. And so, without referencing that particular moment, what is your process for introspection and getting out of, let's say, failure or any setbacks that you have? How do you go about that without loss of belief, without loss of optimism?
That's a great question. At the end of the day, startups are just one big long marathon of suffering. It's not sexy, it's not pretty. I know the guys on YouTube, wave their hands and say it's amazing. It's not. So if you want pain avoidance, you really should not start up a business because you're just going to have sleepless nights and a lot of pressure and a lot of loss. But if you like that kind of thing, for me, what I do every morning, and I hope this helps someone, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I remind myself of what my goals are for my life. It's like back to basics. What am I trying to do with my life? What do I want? What do I want to do with my kids? What do I want to do with my spiritual life? What do I want to do with this business? And the reason why this is so important is you got to remind yourself of what your compass is pointed at. What's the goal? And we all know we want to all make money, right? We're good old fashioned capitalists here, but it's more than that. That's like a means to an end. We're trying to get somewhere. So what is that? And then what do I need to do today? Not yesterday, not tomorrow. What do I need to do today and get done today? One, two, or three things, but I usually aim for one or two because it's easier to achieve. Come hell or high water, I'm getting that done today, right? So that's a scoping issue, but it's also a prioritization and a force ranking issue. I'm getting this done today. Now, if your hit rate's 80%, you're doing really, really well. But if every day you're getting that one thing done that will advance you based on everything you've learned through yesterday, then you won't fall into a habitual pattern where you're just doing stuff because you did it yesterday. Every day's work needs to be challenged. No, what's the most important thing I need to get done today? Not what I did yesterday. Now, if the answer is what I did yesterday after examination, then that's what you should go do. But usually you'll learn something through yesterday from the beginning of time in your life where probably what you do yesterday would be stupid to do that today, especially if you're in the construction phase. Maybe in the operational phase, no, but in the construction phase, for sure, what you did yesterday is probably the wrong thing to do today. So, not being comfortable with that pattern of just waking up and doing, but really thinking about, your purpose, your plan, your life, and then tactically, right? What do I need to get done today? And that's the whole getting better 1% every day. It compounds and it's like this amazing accelerator. And you can overtake anyone, competitor or otherwise, with this kind of mindset.
What
No
made you
worries.
enter the OPM program?
I figured we had something to learn. So I'm like, I want to go learn something and maybe they can help me learn something. I did it when I was in my early 40s and I'd already, had a few startups and I've always wanted to go to Harvard. My parents were educators. Between my two parents, they have six master's degrees and undergrads and a PhD. So I lived in colleges my whole life. I was very comfortable being in a college. So I just always wanted to go to Harvard. I heard it was the best. I want to be there and I want to learn something. And actually, after OPM 3, I won't tell you who, but I went up to one of the professors you probably know, and I said, "I already know all this stuff." He goes, "Yes, but you learned a way to create a filing cabinet and how to file all that stuff in the filing cabinet, and now you have all these people you can learn from." And I'm like,
Sounds like operation. Sounds like something an operations guy would say.
"Exactly, totally, totally." And I'm like, old reference, I would use a reference of like meta tagging and loading it into your database, but I get what you're saying. And it did actually do that. It did actually do that. And honestly, evoy wouldn't be here without my co-founder, Ayman Elzamil, who was in OPM 49 with me all 3 years. And I didn't expect that, but that's definitely what came out of it. So kind of what I thought I was going to get, it wasn't like that at all. It was actually much better.
And it's now been just about 10 years since you completed OPM. So you've been separated from the program for a while, which is different and unique from the profile of other participants I speak to who may have just recently completed the program. Could you talk a little bit about how the takeaways from OPM still influence you or don't, if they still come in handy on a day-to-day basis, how you find yourself revisiting your learnings, and if there's any professor or a case which has stuck with you, that's fine as well. But just walk us through that, please.
Man, there's so many. I'll highlight a few. As you guys know, it's all about the other. They really are a family for life. I know people say that, but it's really true. You learn that everyone's a character and they're kind of weird, right? Which is cool. That way you don't feel too much alone. There's a bunch of other weird people out there doing crazy stuff. So there's some comfort. Misery loves company. And there's people to learn from. In my case, my co-founder, he's probably the finest business partner I've ever had. I
Did you
learned
meet him
so
through
much.
OPM?
I did, yeah. He's an OPM 49.
And then you all
We were
became
in the same
partners?
all 3 units together, yeah.
Okay, go on, please.
And we didn't live in the same facilities in any unit, but we found our way to one another. And I'll give you a few highlights too. The geopolitics, just understanding someone from Pakistan's take, when something goes down, or a South African, how they feel about the situation, or what's going on in Ukraine, and feet on the ground, or people who grew up in those areas and are dealing with real practical situations, or Russia, for that matter. I mean, I love our Russian OPMers, and they're some of my greatest friends. What they're dealing with, given the situation, and nobody thinks like me, and I think that's what's really cool. I love that because we think people think like us, but they really don't. And then the last thing I think that was really cool for me, at the time I was married when I went through OPM, and I have 4 kids, and everyone had 4 kids, or 3.5 kids, I think was the average in our OPM group. So that was kind of cool to see that a global. So on one hand, we're very different. On the other hand, we're all the same.
Uh, Incredible. What advice would you give your younger version if you could speak to the 20-year-old Brad today? What would you tell him?
Take bigger risks, be more aggressive, think bigger, ignore the fears, stare the fears in the eyes. Don't lose time worrying about things that don't actually matter. Everything that you're worried about isn't true. So the things you should be worried about, you don't even know what they are. So you can't dedicate your mind to worrying about them. But whatever it is you're currently worried about before launching a venture or getting something really ramped up, it's all nonsense. Ignore it because it's not very helpful. Just go for it. And the learnings are in the failures. They're not in the successes. You don't learn anything from success. It literally teaches you nothing. So embrace the mistakes, embrace the failures, because by figuring out what doesn't work, that's how you'll figure out what works, and it'll.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so beautiful. My last question for you is there a book which might have influenced the way you think that you'd want to maybe mention to us?
Yeah, I think Good to Great is one of the books that I reread. It's one of the few. And it's interesting, different parts of the world say something like good enough is threatened by great. In America, we tend to think that good enough is the enemy of great, you know? So really deciding what you're going for is incredibly important, but also understanding great doesn't mean perfect. And I think that was the big lesson I got out of that book is greatness is about speed and a commitment and a mindset more than perfection, because perfection doesn't actually solve anything. It doesn't have a lot of utility, but delivering massive value and being great has a magnetic attraction, a gravity all its own.
Thank you. Brad, this has been such a powerful conversation. I appreciate this and I hope it inspires a lot of people. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise. Bye.
Bye bye.